Welcome to Translation Confidential. This is Peter Argondizzo, and today I'm joined by my guests, Kimberly Miller, COO at Argo Translation, and Mike VanNorman, Production Manager at Argo Translation. And today's topic is the relevance of translators in an AI world. If I go to one more cocktail party and I hear, "Aren't you done yet? Have you heard of AI?" And the answers are always, "I can assure you I'm not done yet." And yes, I have heard of AI. Thanks for reminding me. But I mean, hey, it's a topic, right? Everybody's like, "Hey, it's AI, man. Isn't this like replaced you guys?" And it's funny, but once you get into the meat and potatoes of it all, people start to understand. You say, "Well, you can't use unadulterated AI on high risk content without having a human in the loop." And hey, listen, all this stuff takes technology, and it takes someone guiding you how to use the technology, telling clients what levels of AI are appropriate or inappropriate for the given project. Not to mention all the types of projects where the text is just somewhere where AI can't get to. So we're going to cover all of that, but we're going to focus on the humans and where do the humans belong. Basically, it's transforming every corner of our industry. I should use my show notes. I'm going to use them. From workflows to how we think about the very definition of translation, but amidst the hype and cocktail parties, one question stands out. What's the role of the human translator in an AI-driven world? So let's get started. I'm going to bounce between you guys, or you just jump in. My question to you guys is, this is kind of not new, right? I mean, since you've both started in language, the role of the translators has evolved. Kimberly, why don't we start with you, and then we'll jump to Mike. What are some things you've guys observed over the years, and maybe, is it accelerating, or talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of change?
Yeah. Well, do you remember like way back? I mean, the translators have been forced with kind of these big changes since, when TM first came out. That was the first like showstopper. Oh my gosh, there's TM. And there was translators that kind of were nervous about it. And then obviously the ones that adapted it, succeeded really well. And they realized, oh, I can do a lot more in less time. And then there was, of course, MT, which was kind of really scary at first. But then when it got to NMT, neural machine translation, it was much better, more. And that's where we got in. We got in, starting working on those, MTPE workflows. So AI is just kind of like the next step, And honestly, the people now that are like, oh my God, how do you still have a job? It's AI does everything. It's because they don't know the path that we've already been on. We've seen all of this before. This is just the next step past, machine translation, honestly. So it's just another.
Yeah, the next advancement of the technology.
Yeah.
Mike, in your time, what stuck out for you, would you say, in terms of how it's changed?
Well, when I started, cat tools were a big thing, but I think kind of the move to cloud-based cat tools was the recent change where translators had to adapt and learn to work with all of their clients' different online systems. And you just have to learn the new tools, learn how to use new QA check functionality. Yeah, like Kimberly said, the MT was in kind of the next step, and now the MT is just a lot better and a lot more ingrained as part of the workflow.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, right? I think for most translation services firms, if they haven't begun using AI in one form or another, it might be too late. I don't know if that's a big thing to say. And I would say
Yeah,
with translators, you can probably afford to be a little bit more nimble than agencies, right? I mean, like you say, both of you talked about is, we didn't start working on AI initiatives last week. I mean, we've been working on this for a while. If you consider the work we started back with neural machine translation engines and getting it into our workflows. And the piece that I always talk about on the podcast, you guys, is the work that you have been doing with your team on doing lunch and learns and training our translators who are not employees of Argo Translation, right? They're freelance translators that work for other agencies. But you've gone to great lengths to talk to the translators and say, hey, this is what's coming. I think all of that messaging was really powerful and helpful. I mean, what are you guys hearing from the front lines? I'm just curious. No swear words. Just remember,
Well,
this
not
is
to
a
jump
PG rated
ahead,
show.
but Mike actually is hosting the next webinar for translators on AI.
Yeah.
So that
An
is,
AI roundtable.
yeah, so that'll be really exciting. But yeah, ever since we started those webinars, they've been really well received. Of course, we also always send out, yearly service or surveys asking for like what other topics are you interested in? It's important to like, yes, we can see stuff from our point of view, what they might need assistance with, but they have other ideas as well. So we like to incorporate that. So a lot of
Yeah, it
success.
makes it more palatable for the translators when we engage with them, kind of have training sessions with them, and of course for our internal team and lunch and learns and such. But it makes it just more palatable and helps you get over that fear of using AI when you realize, oh, it's doable. We're doing it. Here's how you use it. And I think a lot of them are starting to get the hang of it and like it and realize how valuable it can be, and it does have a place in the industry.
Well, let me ask you guys a question along those same lines. So let's say that you're a translator out there and you work with language service providers like ours, or language technology integrators, as people are starting to call us, LTIs. And they haven't looked at AI, they haven't really done much. And if they were to pick up the phone and say, hey, Kimberly, hey, Mike, I've noticed, my revenue's starting to decline. It seems like less agencies are talking to me. What are some pieces of advice, and whoever wants to start, what are some pieces of advice you would give to what should they do to get familiar, to maybe dip their toe in the water? What would you guys suggest to a freelancer?
Well, if they've started to see the work slow down, it could be because they are adopting their workflows to use some AI assistance, maybe some MTPE. So if this translator doesn't have any experience, sounds like your hypothetical translator doesn't have any experience in it, that would be a critical first step. They should check out that ISO, actually the MTPE standard on 18587. It lists all of the things that you would be responsible for, because I think that's a big misunderstanding that started with MT is like, what am I responsible for fixing? What am I allowed to pass through? And AI is just the next iteration. It's still pre-translation by something other than a human. So it doesn't matter if it's MT or if it's AI. It's the same standard at the end of the day, the quality that you have to give. So you should familiarize yourself with those expectations and then sell yourself on them. Talk to people and let them know that you're willing and able, that you can do those things. And I'm sure that they would get more work.
Yeah, exactly. Like you mentioned, almost all companies in our industry are using AI of some sort. So if you market yourself as an AI expert, you're competent, you have experience, you're willing, if you come in with a positive vibe, so to speak, for AI, you're going to have a lot more success, I think, winning some work. Otherwise, if you kind of are stuck in old ways and are hesitant or want to turn down projects that use AI, then you might not have as much luck winning jobs.
I like that, Mike and Kimberly. I think that's, really good advice. I probably have a third piece of advice that's maybe popular, unpopular, I'm not sure. But, I spend some time on LinkedIn and I'm connected to a lot of translators and a lot of agencies. And one of the things that really breaks my heart to see is self-pity. I think that it's negative. I think that it accelerates a negative dynamic on the industry, that the woe is me thing. Listen, if my mother, who's right here, she's right here, there she is, she's right there. If my mother were here, with the video on, you see, she would slap you all and say, buck up. She'd say it in Italian, though. Basically, get your act together and figure this out. I get it. This is our livelihood. I completely get it. I think the only thing that maybe, Kimberly, Mike, and I can say is for sure for me, because I look more gray hair than they have, older. Yeah, maybe a little bit, Mike, but 30 years in the business is we've seen some stuff. Like, we've seen negative downturns. We've seen transformational change in the industry. Embrace it. You're not going to change it. So putting a post on LinkedIn that says, hey, I'm sick of looking at crappy AI and demeans what I do, all of those things. It's not going to help. So instead, become part of the solution and not part of the problem. And what I would say is embrace the technology, figure out how to do it better. And the agencies that you feel that aren't doing it right, don't work for them. Go work for the other ones. And if you have feedback, because again, it's new for a lot of us, right? New in the sense of how it incorporates into the tools and the approaches we take. And I guarantee you there's new approaches that are coming every day. Give feedback, be valuable, be part of the solution, rather than part of the problem. And stop being a negative Nelly or a negative Nancy. I'm tired of reading the LinkedIn posts that say it's the end of the frickin' world. You can stop now. I'm done with that.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it's here.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
A year ago it was more cloudy. Now I feel it's a lot more solidified, and solutions are appearing that are working, and we've been having success with it. And just give us feedback. Give us feedback on any issues, and then we can work to figure out what is good about it and what isn't.
I love that. And, we work very closely. Like Mike and Kimberly have a really good relationship with our translation management system provider, with Blackbird, with all the various tools that we use. So that feedback is valuable for us. So why don't we pivot a little bit? Let's, the spirit of our podcast is Translation Confidential, right? It's the ideas from Bourdain and Kitchen Confidential, right? It's the idea that we're allowing people to understand a little bit in the weeds of what goes on. So let's talk a little bit about what's behind the scenes, because I think from a translator's perspective, from a client's perspective, I mean, how do we make sure that the AI we're using is the right form of AI? How do we protect our clients' data? Maybe we can speak a little bit to that, because I think maybe the translators also have a misconception of, that we're just chucking everything into a big bucket and we're just giving them a bunch of crap in return. How do we make sure that the AI we give to our translators is the best possible translation that they can use on a first review? How do we do those things?
Well, we can't say that there aren't some places that are doing that. And that's where that fear comes up, right? That people are just throwing
And
the
they're seeing
math
it
together. It's a question that clients have come to us wanting to know. It's always, most things are client driven, right? Their questions, their needs, and you work down the line. So that's one of the biggest questions that came up with AI wasn't even like, oh, you can do it cheaper and faster. I mean, that was probably the second and third thing they asked, but the first thing they've always asked was, how are you protecting my data? Where is this at? We've always siloed all customers and all customers TM. So the same exact thing happens with the AI from our side. So when we do have workflows that can learn off of the client's previous translations, but it is only in their own little world, their own little house. It's not seen or visible to anybody else. Mike can talk a little bit more about the actual workflows and what the translators see and stuff, but the big picture is basically, yes, it's all protected, it's siloed, it's individual, the client owns it, and we can turn it on or off whenever they want. We do have like a small handful of clients that don't want any AI, and that is no problem. It's just a click of a button and we aren't going to process anything with that. So
Wonderful.
My understanding is that our translations also are not used to translate the master LLM, right? So the translators can rest assured.
Yes, it doesn't work backwards, right? So there's it's pulled in. Exactly. We are not feeding the beast. So that is in all of our security information. Yes, it's only going one way. It's not going the other.
Wonderful. Mike, anything to add to that?
Well, just Kimberly kind of alluded to it. The way that the majority of our AI translation works is that it indeed utilizes LLMs, and not only can it read the client's siloed TM, adapt the translations in real time to that TM. You can attach glossaries. It learns from the glossary. It utilizes glossary terms. It can work in real time as the translator's working farther down in the file, segment by segment. It can learn from the previous segments that you've confirmed. So yeah, they're they're getting pretty high quality, context sensitive AI translations.
Has there been anything that you guys have learned on this? The word journey is so overused. I'm not using that. On this transition. So transitioning from traditional TMS workflows where we just leverage the TMS in past work to now the integration of AI into workflows. Anything that's been like a aha moment or something that you think was interesting would be
You want to go first, Mike?
Go for it. There's probably tons
I
of
just
things.
realized that you guys put your full names in, and I'm just Kimberly.
is you're
It's
like, you know,
just like
those, you're
Madonna.
like,
Just one name
yes,
is all that I need.
exactly like the rock stars. You only need one. Kimberly. That's it. And we even have another Kimberly, but she's just Kimberly with the last name. You're Kimberly, just Kimberly. It's perfect. Kimberly Miller. I said it. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say any like huge aha things. I mean, there's been some exciting things that have happened, but I mean, we were already kind of using these workflows with neural machine translation and post editing. So our translators were already used to reviewing something that already had kind of a first pass. But what has changed, which I have loved, is I mean, Mike talked a little bit about it, that how it's looking at the TM and the terminology, the term bases, which has been huge. So back in the previous iterations, yeah, it would be like the technology would say, oh yeah, I need this term, but they wouldn't be able to see the sentence for context. They wouldn't be able to necessarily change, the agreement, the whatever. They couldn't change it, and it was just kind of stuck in there. Wouldn't make sense. You'd always have to edit it. And with AI, because it's thinking a bit more, it can see the context of the whole phrase. It can look at before and after. It'll not only put the term in, but will put it in its, correct form. So like I just kind of feel like it's just the next step of what we would have wanted already. So it's like we're just moving
Just on a
towards
whole nother level.
solving. Yeah.
I love that. So for those that are having a hard time understanding the differentiation. So what Kimberly is talking about is that it's dynamic now. So when we used to do MTP workflows using, by the way, machine translation with post editing, some people say human in the loop, or it just means machine translation with a human afterwards, or even two humans afterwards. But when we used neural machine translation, it was fixed. You'd run it, you'd get a translation, and then the translators would edit. Whereas in this current configuration, it's dynamic. The translators put a sentence in, it learns, and the next segment, it's querying in real time. Queries the LLM plus the translation memory, so it leverages both assets in real time, which is an amazing step. I agree. It's a huge step. Mike, I jumped in front of you.
Oh, no, I'm just from the kind of technical standpoint, having moved to a fully new, updated translation management system, and then on our sell side for the clients, it's just gotten there's a lot more to think about now. Like there's so many more settings in our system, project settings, client settings, the way that we've had to revamp our quote presentation formats, our sales messaging, like it's just, there's a lot, which is good. We're able to give the clients options on AI and other steps in the process, how many translators they want looking at it. We always recommend 2 linguists still, initial translator and then the second editor, and we're finding that a lot of clients are still choosing to keep the second editor, which is great. That's totally great. But yeah, there's just a lot more to think about, it seems like, but it's been great
because there's so many possibilities and there's so many things that before it was just like, oh, you want translation, okay, translation, or what is it? There's so many new things. You have to really get to what are the client goals. I know we're not talking about client side and we're talking more about translators, but I mean, like I said before, like it all starts from what people are buying and what it is that they want and what are their goals, and then it just feeds down the line. So
I think they're really important points, though, because I hope it also helps the translators to understand where we're coming from. Because I always have felt like, as language service providers, we're sort of the bridge between the language talent and the folks that need the language to complete their mission for sales or whatever the case is. So I feel like we're sort of the conduit. So it's our responsibility to sort of be that piece in the middle. And so I think this is good. It's a good conversation. I love what you guys just said because it also answers another question. Because if a translator were to say, well, I'm glad you guys just thought about this and you just, flip a switch and now it's just AI. Thank you. No. So this has been a huge project. Mike brings up a really, really good point. Mike and Kimberly have worked with, Mark would be super upset if we didn't mention him, our dev team, right? This has been like a multi-departmental project where in the making, we were talking about this last year.
Yeah, a year ago, yeah.
We thought we were going to launch around now. We were fortunate that we were able to launch earlier because I think the market demand was there. We talked about, just like Mike said, the sales presentation. Kimberly and Mike had to redo the complete like back end of our ERP system in terms of how we set up our pricing. This has been a heavy lift. All those lunch and learns that we talked about, and all the training with not only our internal team, but our external translation team. So this was not something we're like, yeah, this is cool. Let's just,
let's give it a whirl.
Let's just give it a whirl. This has been years in the making. So another question for you. So what are some things that you guys think that AI still can't do? Like, what are some things that it sucks at right now?
Well, okay, Mike, you want to start?
Sure, guys, I'll just throw out a
go for it. I feel like I just keep interrupting and going first, so go.
Remember too, though, the show, like, we usually shoot for about 30 minutes. So if you got like 40 minutes worth of stuff that AI, like maybe abridged version, Mike. So go.
There are still a good amount of more rare languages that simply don't have LLM translation capabilities. So right off the bat, like if there's, a lot of like African languages, just there's no AI. So we're still using fully human workflows for them. AI transcription still needs human editing. You're not getting a perfect transcribed transcript from AI yet. It still needs to have human eyes on it, and that's just a fact. AI VO, still, it's almost there, but AI VO isn't perfect in a lot of the foreign languages. So those are just some downfalls at the moment.
Then there's, of course, anything handwritten, anything scanned. I mean, some scanned stuff, yes, some no. Also, any marketing, anything regulatory, anything like Mike said, we give our clients options from, straight AI with no humans looking at it to 2 humans, and 90% plus pick 2 humans. Why? Because they're in environments where the output has to be rock solid and trusted. And yes, we're using AI to help them get there faster and slightly cheaper. But at the end of the day, the quality still has to be there. And so, I mean, I can count on one hand how many people are of our current clients that just want blind AI. It's not there. We do have a lot of medical clients and stuff like that. So they definitely want humans, but also like anything like with anything emotions, like obviously AI struggles with emotions. It's not a human, right? That's the human touch, is thought and feeling and emotions, understanding. Like deep understanding, not just like I understand the words kind of thing. So that kind of, we all know when we read something like, oh, that was AI written, right? It all sounds the same. You can tell when a human has touched it.
Another quick note, things like context. AI still can't totally pick up on context, especially the age-old question about UI strings. When you're working on UI strings as a translator, it's hard even for you to know. When you feed AI UI strings, which is like words of text that is in software, those don't have context, and AI does terribly with those sometimes. So there's an example, I think, just like the string order information. The AI translates that logically as information about the order. But the translator, who has some more reference here and knows what they're working on, realizes, no, that's a command. That means order the information. Like things like that, you just need a translator's nuance for.
See, and that's, one of my points that we tend to make a lot on the podcast is that the words will be correct, right? It'll be the word for order, it'll be the word for information. Technically, it could be correct. However, without that human oversight, it's lacking. And I think it'll be a good follow-up question for you guys is that if someone rates that translation, right, I'm the client, I get the translation, and it's 98% great, and then those two strings are so poorly translated because it's like, wow, do you even know what our software does? Because like this is completely wrong. They're going to gauge on those mistakes and say, well, this sucks. This is terrible. And that's where I think that human oversight is going to be very important. And this may seem short-sighted. I'm sure there's some of the AI purists are like, well, it's going to come, it's going to get there. I think of humans, like even when a human does a translation, right? The odds that a document is 100% error-free is pretty low, because that's true of when you have the English version of how many times do we buy something at the store, and even if it's, good quality stuff and a good quality manual, and you're like, oh, I found a typo. It just happens, right? So the point is to get that last 2 or 3%, whether it's all humans, whether it's all AI or AI plus humans, you need more oversight. And it's just from our viewpoint as the language service providers is matching the level of risk with what the client is comfortable with. Dovetails into my next question, so thank you for teeing that up, you guys, is what have you seen from client expectations? So I think this is like a good thing for our translators and the freelance translators out there to understand as well, is where have client expectations been?
Honestly, I think the expectations are the same in terms of what they expect for quality. They do not care at the end of the day what you're doing, whether you're using AI in any of your workflows or just strictly humans. At the end of the day, they need the quality at the level that they've picked. So, whether it's following the 17100 standard or the 18587 standard, whatever it is, that's what we have to deliver. They do obviously now have a slight expectation on perhaps shorter turnaround times, which has been fine. Like that is one of the huge benefits of AI, is that it is helping translators translate more content in the same amount of time, which is honestly a win for everybody. The more that we can translate, the more we help, honestly, the whole world, access information that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So that is, that's been a common theme in a lot of the conferences I've gone to in regarding translation, is the fact that there is just not enough human power to human only translate all the material that needs translation. So by having this technology, like that is a huge bonus, and honestly a positive thing that I would hope everyone would see, that we can just get more out there.
That tees up the next great question. So what is that message of hope? So if I'm a translator, I'm studying languages right now, because listen, we've had some universities even approach us. I'm not going to say which, but some university approach us and say, is a translation program still relevant in a university setting today with AI? What message of hope, and I'd like each of you to weigh in, can you give students, professors, translators that are still interested in this industry? What message of hope can you give?
I think that in the foreseeable future, the translation path courses are still needed the same as ever, because like Kimberly was just saying, we're still including humans on all this work. The volume has just increased, and you still need the same training as a translator. You still need to be fluent in the languages and know the skills of a translator in order to be able to properly work with AI translation. And also, still we have that second linguist editing. That's more or less the same as it's always been. You're the second linguist, you're just editing the first translator's work. So I still think the same skills are just as valuable.
Yeah. So if anything, we, potentially adapt some of the programs to incorporate more classes on technology, and encouraging translators to also explore other passions they have. So they have good, really solid specializations, right? Like translators should have a specialization. We don't, yeah, generalists have their place, but it would be great if you understand medical, right? Like that is an area that is always going to need human oversight, significant human oversight. So if you have a background and understanding medicine, on top of obviously a rock solid translator, there's going to be plenty of work for you.
Wonderful. And I think this is a good place to close. So I think I'd like to close with sort of summarizing some of those things in terms of that positive energy. And that I loved what Kimberly was saying about the volume, right? And I think we're starting to see that as the world keeps getting smaller, there will be more translation required. And what we hope is that with this method of lowering the cost for certain types of translation, lowering the time to market, sometimes not even money, it's time, this technology will open up a world where instead of the translation industry being this, it's going to be this, which is exactly what happened when translation memory came out, is that the translation industry just exploded. I see that happening again. What does that mean for translators? Yes, where you used to handle 2,000 words a day, now you're going to handle 5,000 words per day. It's just an expansion. So it's that evolution of the role. And I think, reading my prepared notes, maybe the question isn't really whether translators are still relevant. It's more of how their relevance is evolving. And that evolution, powered by both human creativity, which doesn't happen unless we have university programs that push translation, and human creativity around language, paired with smart technology, is going to be the most exciting part of our story. I think there's plenty more to come. And I am so excited that I had Kimberly and Mike join us for this episode. A really good episode. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining for this episode of Translation Confidential. This is Peter Argondizzo, Mike VanNorman, and Kimberly signing off.